things just keep getting worse for Donald Trump. The self-proclaimed deal-maker-in-chief still hasn't managed, or perhaps doesn't even want, to negotiate an end to the ongoing government shutdown. Everywhere he turns, he's now facing the results of his own failed leadership. And it's not just critics pointing it out anymore. Even some of his own supporters within the MAGA movement and longtime Trump voters are calling him out. In fact, House Speaker Mike Johnson found himself confronted today by one such Trump voter, live on air, in a moment that quickly went viral for all the wrong reasons. We're going to break down exactly what happened, including how Marjorie Taylor Greene, once one of Trump's most loyal allies, is now openly criticizing him. But before we dive into that, if you could take a second to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. It really helps support the channel and keeps our work going strong. Now, before we get to Speaker Mike Johnson's on-air meltdown, let's start with the shockwave that's spreading across conservative circles. Marjorie Taylor Greene's latest appearance, where she openly tore into Donald Trump and his leadership.
Washington Post poll. It shows that 47% of Americans believe that President Trump and the Republicans are mainly responsible for the shutdown. You see it here on the screen, compared to just 30% of Americans who blame Democrats. Of course, Republicans are the ones with the power. Do you agree with Americans in that poll that see the shutdown as your party's fault?
You know what? I don't think the shutdown is popular for either side. And so I see the shutdown completely different from maybe my party leadership. And I'm not putting the blame on the president. I'm actually putting the blame on the speaker and Leader Thune in the Senate. This should not be happening. And I don't think, look, as a member of Congress, we already have a low enough job approval rating. This shutdown is just going to drive everybody's approval rating that much lower.
Yes. But so you're putting the blame on the leadership of your party?
Absolutely. We control the House. We control the Senate. We have the White House. I've been vocal saying, you can use the nuclear option in the Senate. This doesn't have to be a shutdown. But what we have to do is we have to work for the American people. And our country is so divided right now. We see it all the time in every single way. It's divided in what I would say very dangerous ways. And we saw that with the recent assassination of Charlie Kirk, which has upset so many people across the board. And look, when it comes to hearing from senior citizens or my own friends and neighbors and my own family members and people that voted for me, and they're just saying, Marjorie, we just really want somebody to do something about health insurance premiums. We really want our government and our leaders to actually focus on our country for a change and fix our problems. That is the message I constantly hear from my district, and I'm a representative. I don't have to be a cheerleader for my party. I have to represent my district because those are the people that hired me and sent me here. And I myself, I agree with them, and I'm pretty much over it's just drama constantly on TV. No offense, because you guys are on television, but that's all that we see in American politics now.
Marjorie Taylor Greene continues to surprise me, and I don't say that lightly. Now, I'm not about to give her too much credit because, well, it's still Marjorie Taylor Greene. But even I can admit some of what she's saying right now happens to be true. Even if she's not the one really making the argument. Here's what we've been saying all along. Donald Trump is driving this government shutdown because he wants to push policies that raise everyday costs, including higher premiums, and because he's fixated on cutting large portions of the federal workforce. It's not about efficiency. It's about creating chaos and convincing Americans that government can't work so that it can be handed over to private interests. That's the real motive. And while Marjorie Taylor Greene may be voicing some of that frustration now, let's be clear. She doesn't get the credit. We're the ones who've been saying it all along. Still, it's almost amusing to see Donald Trump's plan backfiring so completely. He thought he could control the narrative, that he could spin this shutdown into a win, but it's not working. Even Republican voters are seeing through it. And that became crystal clear when Speaker Mike Johnson faced an angry Trump supporter live on C-SPAN. And it did not go well for him.
Hi, Mr. Johnson. So my question or comments are related to what you said yesterday about not being open to pass any legislation to ensure that military gets paid. I'm sure you can tell by my voice I'm very shaky. Just want you to hear a little bit about my family. I have 2 medically fragile children. I have a husband who actively serves this country. He suffers from PTSD from his 2 tours in Afghanistan. If we see a lapse in pay come the 15th, my children do not get to get the medication that's needed for them to live their life, because we live paycheck to paycheck. I heard you earlier say that you side with President Trump on anything that he says. Well, I just read an article this morning that said he absolutely wholeheartedly believes that there needs to be legislation put in so that we do not miss a paycheck. You have the power to do that. And as a Republican, I'm very disappointed in my party, and I'm very disappointed in you, because you do have the power to call the House back. You did that, or you refused to do that just for a show. I am begging you to pass this legislation. My kids could die. We don't have the credit because of the medical bills that I have to pay regularly. You could stop this, and you could be the one that could say military's getting paid. And I think that it is awful, and the audacity of someone who makes 6 figures a year to do this to military families is insane.
All right, Samantha.
Samantha, I'm so sorry to hear about your situation. The reason I've been so angry this week, and they've been calling me out on media, Johnson's angry. I am angry because of situations just like yours. I have a big military district, and my district is the home of the Global Strike Command at Barksdale Air Force Base and Fort Polk, the Joint Readiness Training Center. I have one of the biggest military districts and military families in America.
Even many longtime Trump voters and Republicans are beginning to see through the misinformation coming from this administration. They understand that the fear-based rhetoric about undocumented immigrants simply doesn't hold up to reality. The truth is that undocumented workers contribute billions of dollars in taxes every year. Much of it through payroll taxes that help fund programs like Medicare and Social Security, even though they're unable to fully access those benefits. In other words, they're helping support the very systems that make this country stronger. Meanwhile, many of the states that claim to oppose federal spending, the ones often held up as self-reliant, actually depend heavily on funding from states like California and New York, which send more money to Washington than they get back. But leaders like Mike Johnson don't want to talk about that. Instead, they shift blame, trying to convince people that immigrants or progressives are responsible for problems they themselves have created. And that kind of distraction is exactly what we're seeing again in his latest argument about deploying troops, a claim that simply doesn't hold up under scrutiny.
Hi. I just want to start by saying, hearing you say that everyone is smiling in the cities where troops, our National Guard, has been rolled into, feels dystopian and insane to hear you say that, watching the response to this. But that's not actually my question. My question, I just needed to say that while hearing you talk about this. My question is, if Republicans and Democrats can agree to a 1-year extension to the ACA subsidies, removing this sort of talking point of illegal immigrants draining our resources, as you sit here and lie about this, would you support that bill and bring it to a vote on the House floor? This is a big question that I have for you. Thank you.
Yeah, well, not lying. I'm telling you the truth, and you can go look at all the documents yourself. Don't look at Republican paperwork. Look at the Congressional Budget Office, who said that we had at least 1.4 million illegal aliens draining the resources from Medicaid, which is why you put their forms into law and got it signed July 4th. Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries' counterproposal for the CR would reverse all that. Look at page 57, section 2141 of the bill that they filed. I made it easy for you. Go to speaker.gov, my website. It's right there on the homepage. See for yourself. Don't take my word for it. Look what they wanted to do.
People across the country are fed up, and honestly, every Democrat should be speaking out about this, and doing so with the passion this moment deserves. The images we've seen have been disturbing. What Donald Trump and Kristi Noem are doing right now isn't just about policy. It's about building a network of loyal enforcers under the banner of ICE, and that should concern everyone. These aren't just government agents. Reports suggest that many come from extremist backgrounds, individuals once linked to groups like the Proud Boys or Oath Keepers. These are people driven by anger, resentment, and a desire to target vulnerable communities, women, minorities, and people of color. And now, some of them are being empowered to act out that hostility under the protection of political authority. What we're witnessing isn't law enforcement. It's intimidation. It's fear tactics designed to silence dissent. They record themselves doing it, often covering their faces because deep down they know what they're doing is wrong. They know it crosses moral and legal lines. If you're a Democrat, or simply someone who believes in basic human decency, this should move you. You should care. Because when you see footage of peaceful people being shoved, harassed, or pepper sprayed simply for expressing themselves, it's not politics as usual. It's cruelty on display. And Americans are angry about it. Rightfully so. That's why voters are calling leaders like Mike Johnson and demanding that they finally show some courage and stand up to this kind of behavior.
Yes, good morning. Just wanted to ask the speaker a couple of questions. Have you ever voted against anything that Trump set forth as far as policy? That's one question. The other is, what is going on with the swearing in of the congresswoman who will make the 218 vote? I noticed that you were speaking in the hall yesterday with someone regarding the idea that, you know, maybe she would make the 218th vote that would open up the vote for the Epstein files to be released. This is not something that we are going to forget about. This is serious business. The other thing is that Trump is a dictator, so it doesn't matter what Johnson does or what the guy over in the Senate does. All the things that has to happen is if Trump says open the government, it will be open tomorrow. We have to understand that. And they keep talking about we're putting names out there about Trump being the dictator and this and that. You just called, and he continues to call.
All right, Alexander.
People need to wake up. And thankfully, many are starting to. The reality is simple. These Republican leaders are serving an audience of one, Donald Trump. That's who they care about. Not the American people, not their voters, not their constituents, only him. As long as Donald Trump can post online and threaten them with a few harsh words, they'll continue to fall in line, no matter what it costs the country. Take the Jeffrey Epstein case, for example. The hypocrisy from the right is staggering. They constantly ask, where were Democrats in 2020 or 2021, as if this is some kind of political game. The truth is, no one on the right was genuinely interested in justice then, and many still aren't now. The reason so many people want the Epstein documents released today isn't political. It's about accountability and justice for survivors. And the more Donald Trump and his allies resist transparency, the more people want answers. It's common sense. If there's nothing to hide, then why keep hiding it? Let's also remember that under President Biden's administration, Ghislaine Maxwell was brought to justice. Without grandstanding or media theatrics, the Justice Department quietly did its job and held an actual criminal accountable. Contrast that with Donald Trump, who has hinted at the idea of pardoning her, a move that would deeply insult victims and survivors everywhere. Meanwhile, Speaker Mike Johnson continues to defend this behavior, focusing on blocking others in Congress rather than standing up for what's right. If you're a Democrat, or anyone who believes in integrity, you need to talk about this. Speak up. Highlight what's happening. And thank you to Hakeem Jeffries for having the courage to do exactly that.
On the Hill right now, as you know better than anyone. I also played this exchange or this interview that Speaker Johnson did, and also an exchange, I should say, where he basically denies that not swearing in Adeliza Grijalva, who won her election more than 2 weeks ago, has anything to do with the Epstein files. We all know she's the 218th vote for the discharge petition. I assume you do not buy that at all.
We don't buy it at all. And we all know this is about the Epstein files and the fact that Republicans on the Hill for months have been doing Donald Trump's bidding and trying to hide these Epstein files from the American people. Notwithstanding the fact that the victims have called for full transparency so there can be accountability. And we fully support these brave victims. And Mike Johnson and this group continue to cover up for the pedophiles. That's crazy. And as you pointed out, Representative-elect Adelita Grijalva was going to be a great member succeeding, her legendary dad in the Congress, a progressive champion. She's made clear, I'm going to be the 218th vote on the discharge petition to force an up or down vote, which will pass the House, forcing the Trump administration to release the Epstein files. That explains, in part, why Republicans have been on vacation for the last several weeks. Literally, we have not been in session since September 19th. The Republicans got out of town before sundown, and they've not come back ever since because they cannot justify their position across the board. They continue to hurt everyday Americans as part of their effort to simply reward their billionaire donors.
It's deeply concerning that a sitting member of Congress is being prevented from being sworn in, and the lack of transparency around why raises serious questions. Many Americans are asking what's being hidden, including the long-awaited Epstein case documents that the public deserves to see. Let's be clear. Accountability and truth should never be partisan issues. Denying the results of a certified election undermines democracy itself, and when it's tied to secrecy or political games, it becomes even more troubling. With the next elections approaching, voters have a real opportunity to demand openness and fairness, to ensure that justice and transparency win out over political cover-ups. This is not just about one case or one election. It's about defending the integrity of our democracy. We'll continue to talk about this right here on the show. If you want to support that conversation, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, leave a like, and if you've made it this far, drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I will see you soon.